There is a strong truth behind Chilli, and that is that Bluey is not Chilli's first daughter. There is ample evidence to confirm this. In the episode The Show, we all thought that Chilli had lost a baby, and this was just an assumption. But I have found many details that point to the fact that Chilli actually did lose a baby. So Bluey is a rainbow baby. Let's start by talking about the episode where the whole show originated. In this episode, Blue and Bingo try to give their mother a gift to celebrate Mother's Day. First, they bring her breakfast in bed, but Bingo trips and spills all the food. Chilli, like a good mother, rushes to comfort Bingo and encourages him to not be sad anymore. These things happen, I'll tell you what I do. Do I dust myself off? Ready. And continues. As Bingo thinks everything is already ruined because of him, Bluey proposes to do a show, so they decide to put on a show for Chilli where they are going to perform. How did your father and mother meet? So Bingo will act as Chilli and Bluey will be Bandit. The girls start acting and recreate how Bandit and Chilli met, how Bandit asked Chilli to marry him, and how Chilli was pregnant. And here comes the important part of this episode. Bluey says that she's the one in the belly. Because they probably don't know about that event. While the scene where Chilli is pregnant was happening, suddenly Bingo's balloon that she put under her blouse pops. But Chilli and Bandit's reaction was as if they were in shock, as Chilli just stares into the infinite and beyond. While Bandit squeezes her hand very hard, Bingo runs out crying, and Blue goes after her to console her, whereas previously it had been Chilli who had gone to console Bingo and encourage her. But on this occasion, she was completely paralyzed, looking into the beyond, probably because the scene reminded her of that unpleasant moment. At this point, everyone might think that Bandit and Chilli's reaction was simply because Bingo got upset and became sad about ruining the show. But in fact, several parents who have seen the scene always relate it to the loss of a baby. Reason enough for Bandit to stay and comfort Chilli instead of running off with his daughters. Well, this scene is quite traumatizing for a mother. So let's go through all the details that prove this theory is indeed true. The next episode that backs us up is called Bedtime. In this episode, Chilli reads stories to Bingo so she can sleep, and then Bingo starts having a pretty fun dream, in which each member of her family is represented by a planet. Bingo's father is represented by Jupiter, while Chilli is represented by the sun. And from here, we can start connecting all the details. We already know that each of these planets represents a family member or character within Bingo's dream. That is, the planets closest to the sun are the ones closest to Chilli, which in this case would be his children. In one of these scenes, we can see that Bingo is the third planet closest to the sun, not the second. And to better understand it, let's see it this way. The sun is Chilli, Earth is Bingo, Venus is Bluey, Jupiter is Bandit, and we find Floppy as the moon and also in Saturn's ring. But we also have Mercury. That Mercury is the planet closest to the sun, however. We see that Venus, the second closest planet to the sun. This is about Bluey, and if you paid attention, they represented it very well by opening the planet like a shell, which means that Bluey was indeed born. And the same goes for the planet that represents Bingo as the third planet, which is Earth. Again, we see her coming out of the shell. So Jupiter and the Sun are the biggest planets, so they represent Mom and Dad. But at the end of the episode, we see Bingo sitting on Mercury, so we can come to think that Mercury actually represents that baby they could never have. Chilli, and that's why he is the closest to her, because he was the first. Another thing we can say about this planet is that it also didn't open up like a shell, unlike Bluey and Bingo with their planets. And well, you might think that this can't be the case because it's actually a dream of Bingo, and she doesn't know anything about this lost baby. But they forget about something very important. The family can share dreams and blend into each other's. And we saw this in the Fruit Bat episode where Bluey shared dreams with Bandit, and even in this same episode, it was when Bluey enters Bingo's dream. So there is no reason why Chilli can't share dreams with Bingo. And possibly Mercury's idea is not exactly Bingo's, but rather Chilli's, who brought his ideas to this very dream. And that's why Mercury represents that first baby she could never have. The next episode we have as evidence is about puppets. And it's not exactly the episode that provides proof, but in this episode we find 2 photographs of Chilli and Bandit, which serve as evidence for us. The first photograph is about the wedding between Chilli and Bandit, and what we will analyze in the photos is basically how they look. Well, in this first photograph, Chilli and Bandit have slightly longer fur. They still don't have gray hair because they didn't have children yet. Then we see another photograph of Chilli pregnant in Sydney, and the important thing here is that we still see the same hairstyle she had at her wedding. She has that little extra lock of hair on the side. And we can see Chilli's quite round belly, which suggests that she is indeed pregnant. And well, now we know that this is what Chilli looked like when she was pregnant. Which leads us to the next episode that completes this evidence, which is Baby Race. In this episode, we see Chilli and Bandit looking different. They don't have gray hair yet, but they also don't have that extra hair they had during Chilli's pregnancy and their wedding. Which means there was indeed a big change over time. And you probably think that maybe Chilli cut her hair while she was pregnant or after being pregnant. But generally, when we see a hairstyle change within the show, it means a considerable amount of time has passed. A very clear example is Nana in the fairy tale episode. She had a huge perm, and in the following episodes that hairstyle disappeared. The same thing happened with Wendy and Judo, showing a significant change in time by making a change to their fur. Did you decide to cut it? Yes, that's right, it was time for a change. And you can't deny that many times we cut our hair when something important has happened in our life. Or to break cycles, as many people say. And that's why they make radical changes to their hair. And maybe for Chilli, changing her look was a necessary change to close that cycle where she lost her first baby. This was followed by the luck of getting pregnant with Bluey, and with that said, Bluey would be her baby. Rainbows, which if you didn't know, are what babies born after a pregnancy loss are called. The next point that could serve as evidence is Brandy herself. We know her from the costume episode. Which leads me to think that Chilli and Brandy, when they were single, had fertility issues, so Brandy could have had multiple unexpected losses. And maybe Chilli too, and this was the reason that really brought the two sisters together. But then Chilli was lucky enough to have Bluey and also Bingo. But Brandy just couldn't have anything, and it's probably one of the main reasons why Brandy distanced herself from Chilli and hasn't wanted to talk to her for 4 years, because it was something really hard for Brandy to process. The last clue we have to support this theory is found in the rain episode. This scene could be interpreted in any way, but after all that has been said, the interpretation I'm gonna give is more logical for everyone. At the end of the episode, we see Bluey and Chilli together looking up at the sky, where we find a beautiful double rainbow. And this rainbow could probably only represent Chilli and Bluey. But we can't rule out the idea that these rainbows actually represent Chilli's 2 children. Because in her mind, the 2 little ones are her 2 rainbow babies, whom she was so lucky to have after that tragic loss. And honestly, it's the only time we've seen a rainbow within the show. But the final word will always be yours. So leave in the comments what you think about this theory. Do you think Bluey could have had another little brother? We read you in the comments.